Broken to Brave, Episode 8, Number 10. Put on costumes and allowed myself to be part of the story. My daughter's a professional actress in Chicago and was given the opportunity to participate in a long-term, immersive theater experience called Chronicles of the Realm. It would take place over about a year and a half at 4 different venues. Because she's a minor, one of us had to be there to watch out for her. Each event was out of town for several days. My husband used to be a professional actor, so he was the obvious choice to participate. I, not being a participator, joiner, or actor, would be a terrible choice. All good, right? Wrong. He went to the first rehearsal, and they decided to cast him too. He would be in a different area from her, therefore he couldn't be her guardian. Guess who was left to choose from? Yep, me. I had to wear a costume because I couldn't be the only one there in regular clothes. It would take the players out of the game. I had to have a character. I thought that if I was her handmaid, that would explain my hovering, and if I was mute, I wouldn't have to participate. I kind of pictured myself as Lady Cluck from Disney's animated Robin Hood. I was dressed just like her. I brought knitting that I could do and kept myself out of the way in corners trying to hide. The outfit was so awful. It was uncomfortable. And because the universe hates me, I got my period the first night there. I had on layers, people. Lots of layers. And a long skirt that was so much fabric. Trying to gather it up and deal with a toilet and not get blood everywhere was insanely impossible. The first weekend, something happened, though, that I didn't imagine even in my wildest dreams. I had fun. A lot of fun. A ridiculous amount of fun, and I grieved when it ended. The next time was pretty much the same for me. Dressed up, no period, thank God, and I had a great time, but I still hid most of the time. The third time is why it's on the list. Molly and I were to pretend to be pirates at this event, and we were to sneak into camp on day 2 in the morning. I had quite a bit of experience now doing really scary, brave things, so I wasn't too surprised by my desire to participate at first. I dressed up, joined the game, and interacted with the players despite my muteness, which I don't think is a word, but whatever. One of the pirates had brought a fabric sign. I used that to communicate by pointing to the letters on the fabric as the pirates tried to decipher the words I was spelling. Most of the time, it was some horrible swear word that I was calling someone. My character is an angry handmaid. The rest of the time, they would get through this whole long line of letters, only to yell at me in frustration as they realized it spelled, "That's what she said," yet again. This was the first time I played the game. This was the first time I really fully engaged. I hate costumes. I was terrible at Halloween my whole life. The girl I used to nanny for can attest to that. I'm so bad at Halloween that when she was 2 years old, her family had a party and I came dressed in all black with antenna on my head. She looked at me and said, "What's this?" I said, "I'm a bug." She replied back, "Do you have a bug costume?" I said, "Yes," thinking, isn't that obvious? She said, "Maybe next time you could wear it." Ouch. But this time I did it. I dressed up, I played, I had fun. Sometimes bravery is allowing yourself to look foolish. Episodes of Broken to Brave are released every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me on this journey of healing and growth. If you want to go deeper into this story and hear it from a spouse's perspective, my husband and I have a Patreon-only show where we have an extended, behind-the-scenes discussion of every episode, which also posts twice a week. Here's a sample of our latest Patreon-only companion podcast. Yeah, in a situation like that, it was just all of a sudden I saw, I don't know what normal people do. I don't know what's acceptable. I don't know what the right...
So this had nothing to do, we're going to step this aside for a second. This didn't have to do with bravery. The LARP absolutely did.
That did. Yeah, it did.
But I think that there's a lot to unpack within that situation, even though it's a funny story. It's a frightening story to me. Mm-hmm. The bravery part of it, is what I want to get back to. That LARP, and you had to take all of that had happened to you and push it aside. You had to be on your own with Molly at the LARP. I mean,
in the woods.
Without
we were
me,
in some, we didn't know where we were.
Because I'm really your anchor in those things. You had to just go in. And by the time I connected with you guys and was able to talk to you, like, you were playing the game hard. Yeah. You had a whole thing going. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. With being mute.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, why did I say I would be mute? It's impossible. Like, it's so hard. But then one of the pirates had this pillowcase that she had written a sign, you know, and it had enough letters of the alphabet that I could spell things. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So she let me carry it around, and then I could just spell. That's what she said a million times, but, or swear words, but it was helpful, you know, for me to be able to say that's what she said as many times as I really want to in a day. But, or it would be like more like, that's what ye said. But,
that's what ye said.
But I wanted to say something about right after this happened was when I first started going to therapy, like a couple months later or month. And the therapist was saying, okay, you know, now you're an adult, and so you can do that. And I went, well,
let me tell you a story.
And so I told her the story, and she's like, oh. And so after that, she'd be like, well, you're a sort of adult. And I was like, that suits me. Like, that, there's nothing that is more perfect.
I really think that might have to be like an official T-shirt for Broken to Brave.
I'm a sort of adult. Like, I'm not quite there. And actually, one of the girls I used to babysit for when I was pregnant with Molly. Okay, so I was 38. I was 38. To hear the rest of this episode and get other exclusives, become a patron to Broken to Brave at patreon.com. You can also follow my blog at brokentobrave.com for even more insights and engaging content. Links are in the show notes. Broken to Brave is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted and written by me, Martha Southgate. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something brave.